blob LPs. And this is a picture of somebody who's been doing phage therapy. Sorry, this is a little bit, I should warn you, sorry. Somebody's been using phages on wounds pretty much on a compassionate use basis. This is from somebody named Randy Walcott, who has a wound care clinic in Texas. And so he treats mostly people with, say, diabetic foot ulcers, these kinds of things, which tend to not heal well, and also tend to be colonized with antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And these can be very long cases. So this particular person had already undergone antibiotic therapy for this wound for a year, and it still looked like this. So after phage treatment for a few months, you can see the granulation, this granular tissue forming in the wound heals up fine. So this is once again kind of anecdotal. It's a case report. It's not a placebo-controlled study. This doctor is not in the business of doing placebo-controlled studies, but he's in the business of healing his patients. So, but this is I just think it's very interesting to actually see what the effects are. So the current barriers to phage therapy right now, number one is it requires more preclinical work. So this is a barrier. If it's a barrier preventing phages from being used in widely clinically used. So one problem is that you need to have a little bit more bacteriological background on the infection before you start putting phages in there. And you can go with these, like larger cocktails, which is the Georgia style. Although it's hard to tell right now if in the West that would be considered acceptable. Also, phages will probably not be suitable for every infection. Like we're not going to be able to switch away from antibiotics and start using phages. And there will be some infections and some applications where they're just not going to work very well. Versus situations where it's very difficult to isolate phages against some bacteria. But I think probably one of the biggest things that's holding it back is the intellectual property issues right now. Number one is that they're difficult to patent. So you can patent a phage, but there's nothing stopping your competitor from going out and finding almost the exact same phage and using it and just competing with you directly. You are able to patent for use, and you can patent certain formulations. Like for instance, the phage bioderm, which I showed you a few slides ago, you can patent that because that's an invention. But you can't. It's not really very useful to patent a phage. And you can also patent for use, and actually there are dozens and dozens of patents that have been issued already for phage therapy technologies. But because nobody really stood to make any money yet off of phage therapy, there's not a good sense about how many of these patents actually will stand up in court if they're ever challenged. The patent's only as good as your ability to defend it. And so, for instance, there's one company which has a patent which essentially patents the use of any phage to treat any bacterial infection anywhere, at any time, anywhere. So it's kind of like saying I've patented the use of small molecules to kill bacteria, and and you can somehow prevent you can own all the antibiotics in the world. So, but these patents exist, and so it's not really clear what would happen if somebody had a product that somebody actually wants to market a phage product, and then this company is going to show up and say, well, actually, you're infringing on our patent now. And that's just kind of wait and see thing. And that's probably going to depend on who the first company out of the gate is. And also the same type of problems if you have for antibiotics, which is cost recovery. And the development will be a bit less, but if they're required to go through the entire NIH, the entire clinical trial, we trial the entire 4 phases of clinical trials for marketing, that costs a lot of money. So university investigators don't have $200 million lying around to run clinical trials. And if there's a company that has that kind of money, who thinks they can actually recover the cost?